All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Anime Night here. Welcome back to Knights of the Anime Table, episode 18. Hope everybody's having a great Sunday today. I know I am. Let's hope. And with everything that's been going on lately, it's been a very, very crazy week. Avatar underperforming, but also being a global box office hit and other locations. The wacky world that is the Super Mario movie, what we know, what we hope to for more to come out. On top of everything else, also Crash Team Rumble, what I expect will happen, and everything in between. So let's get into Crash Team Rumble. My As I stated in my video after the Game Awards, I came up with more ideas of what I think would make the game successful. If Toys for Bob was paying attention, Beanox, Beanox, this is not a knock on you or anything. You guys made a really great game, which is Nitro Fueled. However, what I feel can make uh, Team Rumble succeed is better servers, and with it being going crossplay, which should have been the get go for Nitro Fueled, this will have longevity. Like I'd be playing on PlayStation, a friend of mine would be playing on the Switch or the Xbox. It would work. I hope we get to see more casting characters because we got Cat Bat, we got Coco, we got Female Entropy, we got Brio, we got Cortex, we got Crash, we got Dingle Dial. I'm hoping to see some more characters as the game progresses, and also I would love to see some of my personal favorites like Pinstripe, Papu Papu, Ripper Roo, the lab assistant and their wacky costumes. Because remember, in Crash 3, in each level, you'll remember in each level they wore different costumes, so it was pretty funny. I hope that comes back like it did in Nitro Field. I would love. I'm hoping the gameplay mechanics. I'm hoping that they're simple. Well, actually, scratch that. I hope the gameplay mechanics are unique in their own ways. Like press triangle to transform into Brio, or if a meter is full, use your super ability. I'm quite curious. I'm curious as to how that's gonna go, and I am very very excited with what we saw. I am wondering. I know the arena. I know the arena is gonna be Wampa Island from what I saw, given the switch of from like dark to light and the volcano erupting like we saw with Crash 4 on Insanity Beach. So that's probably the name of the arena. I hope we do see a lot more coming in. I did get some Crash Bash vibes I mentioned, but I didn't. But now further elaborating on what I mean by that. There is the spin attack, and then tossing other items at everybody. I did notice that, and also breaking the boxes, seeing the relics, and everything in between. But I hope they pick up where Bash left off. I mean, I'm hoping we can. I would like to see an elimination game based game as well, like a game mode, or like or free for all, and have like really wacky mechanics. Heck, have engine in there as well. Oh wait, they already did that. Never mind. But I'm optimistic for Crash Team Rumble. Let's hope it brings. Let's see what it does because it comes out next year, and I will be getting it. I don't know how. I don't know what pre-order I'm gonna do. I'm gonna wait till the bonuses are revealed and then make my decision. Because either way, I'm still getting it. Uh, Lots going on and a lot going on with Avatar 2. Um, I can't get into specifics here, so I'm just going to say it was very packed last night and the night before. Well, the other night, Thursday. So Thursday and last night were really packed, so I will leave it at that. But it looked really good though. From the bits and pieces I saw, it looked good. I can't go any further than this. But if you enjoy the movie, my hat's off to you. If you don't like the movie, just say no further. On top of that, I am looking forward to Christmas. Christmas is this week. I am very excited. I might, depending on how things go, I might do a pre-Christmas stream on Friday. I might. It just depends. Or or do we'll see how the day goes. We'll see how the week goes. Very excited. I hope you all are gonna get awesome Christmas presents. I can't wait to see them. I'll be showing off mine when I get them in due time. Uh, I'm very excited. Also, I am officially going to two cons next year. I'm going to Fan Fusion and Game On Expo. I am going. But it depends on what happens. It depends. I could say I'm going and then not going, but as far as everything, I have everything ready to go. I can't wait for the guest announcements. I hope they're going to be good. Uh, Overall, I feel like 2022 was a really wild year. We've seen a lot of things happen. Unfortunately, the bad, more of the bad than the good. However, in the gaming world and in the entertainment and anime world, I'm happy with what we saw. I'm very happy. We're getting a Super Mario Bros. Movie. Still iffy on Chris Pratt, but uh, I just wish him the best. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm not defending him. I'm just saying I wish him the best. It'll take some time to get used to. However, I welcome Jack Black as Bowser. Seth Rogen, if he can keep his mouth shut on Twitter and just say good things about the movie, I'm happy. But we'll see. And welcome, Fatal.
Hello.
Was wondering when one of you were gonna show up. I was seeing who would show up first. You're like, well,
Yeah, I'm pretty much bored. So
uh,
it's been a very, I don't know. I'm just not having a good day today.
well, I'm
so
here, and you're here.
so I'm cooking at my job.
Oh, that, oh my god, that looks yummy.
Got a little mini skillet I bring to work, so I just cook food. So so
Dude, that's impressive.
I've got some fresh green beans, yellow peppers, onion, and bacon all in all in the skillet.
That is yum. That is yum yum. Come get us some.
So yeah, so I'm trying to eat healthier. Uh, One of the ways I'm eating healthier is, first off, I do not like green beans, and I've decided to try and eat green beans. Of course, I have to eat the fresh ones because I cannot stand them frozen or from a can. It's the same thing with peas too. I don't like peas either. Like peas and green beans are like literally the only vegetables I don't like to eat.
How about strawberries?
Strawberry is not a vegetable; it's a fruit.
Those motherfuckers! Ugh. Get it right next time. Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that you are eating better and trying to get healthier.
Yeah, well, as you recently witnessed, lately I've been questioning if it's even worth it at all. But I'm still trying.
Of course, of course.
I mean, there's been times where I go to the gas station and I'm grabbing drinks, and I look back behind the counter and I see all the tobacco I used to get, and I'm just like, should I? No. You know, I'm almost 2 months. I've been almost 2 months nicotine free, and uh, I don't want to go back to it. I mean, I do, but I also don't.
No, spend money on thick, big titty anime girls. I command you.
I already got one in the mail. The one thing I hate about these
One
anime
is not
things.
enough. You and I both know one is not enough.
Well, I got two more coming. All right. One thing I do not like about this is that I order them, and it's like they got to be shipped from one country one at a time, and I'm just like seriously. I ordered two of them on November 8th. I just got one in about like a week and a half ago, or a week ago, and then I have the other one that I ordered the exact same day. It should be here on the 21st, maybe. And then the one that I ordered on the 18th, it still hasn't even been shipped yet. So I'm just like, that's just of November.
I
So
agree.
who knows when that's
Also,
gonna get? Who knows when that's
hi
gonna get here?
Omega.
Yeah. Omega.
That it's stupid that it gets shipped from one country to another and then finally to the United States. And it's like,
Oh no, they're just stuck in China. I'm like, crap. If I wanted to if I want good actual anime figures, I might have been ordered straight from Japan. But the problem is that they're expensive, and I just don't have that kind of money. So, like, there's one of them I wanted, and it showed it's about $500 to $600 for a figure, and it's Makoto from Persona 5 with her persona.
oh, I can't wait to see that one. Oh,
Like,
Oh,
you can actually see figures.
yes.
Steam Deck. You know what? I've always wanted a Steam Deck. I really do
I'm
want
far
one.
behind. I need to get one. That's on my list of. That's on my list. That's on my PC gaming list. That's one of the items on that list.
Yeah, I need a Steam Deck badly because I've been playing a little bit more on Steam, but the problem is, well, I can't just constantly keep taking my gaming laptop off the mount that I have it mounted on to bring it to work, you know. So, but I need to get a Steam Deck. I need one. The good news is that if I can get some decent connection here, I'll be able to play. I'll be able to play remotely my Xbox remotely from my phone.
Yes.
But that's if I get connection. Otherwise, because you saw the picture of when I was trying to play Persona 5 on my phone, and it looked all greenish, reddish, and pixelated. I don't know why I need to play Persona 5 anymore. I mean, I've played it. I've probably beat it 4 times, the vanilla Persona 5. I beat it 3 times, Royal on the PlayStation 4, and I'm on my second playthrough for the Xbox. I've played it so many damn times, like I can literally recite almost every line. Problem is, I'm just trying to 100%. All right. Heck, I'm still trying to I've already 100%ed Valkyria Chronicles 4, but I cannot seem to 100% Valkyria Chronicles. I can't seem to 100% Valkyria Chronicles 1. I'm having trouble on that.
Yeah, I gave up on Eternal Sonata though. I gave up. I could not beat that pirate boss for the life of me.
How did you give up on Eternal Sonata? That game is easy.
Either I did something wrong because I've been trying. I tried everything in the book, and I still get my ass handed to me.
Hold on a second. Where are you at?
From what I can remember before I gave my PS3 to my roommate, what I can remember is I was on a pirate ship.
Oh gosh, yes, everybody has trouble with Captain Dulce. All right.
That one.
Now, here's the thing about the pirate ship with Captain Dulce. Captain Dulce is like an unbelievably hard boss. So you have at least 3 characters in your party that you're gonna want. You're gonna want Chopin, you're gonna want Salsa, and Frederick. You're gonna like Polka for the healing, Chopin for some of the power attacks, and you'll want Salsa for the echoes. All right, because the more echoes you have, the stronger the attacks will come, and that's what you're gonna want. And Polka is good for healing, and Chopin is also kind of good for healing as well. So you'll want those guys in your party. Now, the big thing is when you go through the pirate ship, I suggest you grind your way through the pirate ship. And you'll go to one room, you'll hit the save point. Don't fight Captain Dulce yet. Or Captain Dulce, that is the name, but it's actually short for dulcimer, which is a musical instrument. I'm pretty sure you kind of figured out the themes of Eternal Sonata, right? Everybody's named after something musical, except for Frederick. So, but when you go up against Captain Dulce, you'll the one thing you want to do is take out her baddie pirate clones. You always want to take them out because on top of her, she gets like 2 main actions, and it's ridiculous. And then and they're always heavy hitters too. And the other pirate, get rid of the pirates, build up your echoes, and use your special attacks on Captain Dulce. But like I said, you want to grind throughout the ship. So what you're gonna do is go from your starting point. Hi, Eagle. Go to your
Eh.
starting
There you go.
on.
Okay, Omega. Good luck out there, Omega, and congrats on the Steam Deck. Come back soon.
Oh, my boys.
Hello, I'm just explaining to Anime Night how to beat Eternal Sonata because clearly he's terrible at it. I guess I don't know.
If Eternal Sonata was on PS4, I would play it and just have you with me. Be like, okay, Fatal,
Actually, you know what?
explain
Here's
this
the
shit
thing,
to me.
Anime Night. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna start streaming. If I can, I'm gonna try and start streaming back on YouTube with some games, and I'll probably do Eternal Sonata like a walkthrough for you. My Xbox 360 still works pretty good. I think it's also backwards compatible with my Xbox One. I'm not for certain, but just for you, I will bust out the Xbox 360 and see if we can get anywhere with it.
Let's see how well I can derail these boys.
But Captain Dulcimer is probably like the big, like you have to grind for her because once they start splitting up that party, things get a little difficult.
This is called the derailment.
Yeah, not derailed.
It derails.
What's not nice to the anime table without big bouncy boobs on it? So.
Yeah, big bouncy boobs. Big bouncy boobs. I'm still part of the Black Justice movement, but big bouncy boobs are okay. I appreciate
Eagle,
it.
you didn't have to end your stream just to get on mine. You didn't have to do that.
Oh, don't worry, I didn't.
I saw you streaming, and then I'm like, well, she'll pop on.
It was planned before for an hour to 2, and we actually went over 2 hours. So it wasn't that. It was the guest getting tired.
I'm amazed they got tired. I'm amazed.
Well, we've been very busy people lately.
But then again, it is cold season, so I can see why.
And it's gonna get real cold.
These aren't cold.
But yeah, it's been pretty wild over here in the last few days. So I'm happy with where I'm at. I like the people I work with, but I am going to leave it at that.
Someday, when I get more viewers, they're going to start coming back and looking through these just to see if they can find content to bitch at me about. And then you'll get more views. Whatever works, right?
Actually, I went back to our older episodes, and I'm just like, God damn. We actually had some good going. Continue it.
We're missing some people from the older streams.
Yeah, where's the rest of our crew? Come on.
I posted a link to...
Somebody go kick Matt's ass. Tell him to get his butt in here.
I posted the link in our group chat. He should see it by now. Hang on 1 second. I'll hold on.
I'm just a prime degenerate, so maybe they're all afraid of me.
I'm just sugar, spice, and everything nice, pure and innocent as the driven snow. I'm so sweet and innocent. Fatal, come on. You don't want to laugh
I'm
at me.
actually on Twitter right now. I'm laughing at a meme. So, I'm going to... This is great. Oh, that's great. That's a good one. Alrighty. Okay, now I also had. I lost my phone stand, and I don't know where it's at.
Have you checked up your arse?
Yes, I have actually.
So it's not up there with the butt plug?
The butt plug's missing too.
Oh, that's just tragic.
So is the 8-inch dildo.
This is turning into a real tragedy.
I know. If anything, I'm more upset about my phone stand, and the 8-inch dildo is just a close second on the list. Well, you know what they say, 8 is great. I read the box and I was like, okay, cool. It's great.
The question is, what color is it? What kind of cock do you like?
It's like a hot pink, but like see-through kind of.
So you like alien cock?
Well, it's not Listen, I was looking for flesh color, but I couldn't find it. All right, but I wanted it, so don't judge.
I'm gonna stick to saying you want alien cock.
No, furry maybe, but not alien.
Remember, I know some furries I can connect you to.
I know some furries too.
And in fact, I think they need to get laid. I mean,
nah.
I know you're taken. I just have to take cheap shots.
Yeah, I'm taken, but if I wasn't taken, I'd probably take it. First off, I'd definitely take you up on that, but you know, sorry. Seriously,
And
if I wasn't
thinking, what the fuck did I come back to, right?
If I wasn't taken, I'd probably be flirting and hitting on with everybody, which I already do anyway. But like, it'd be
I was
like
gonna say you're already flirty as hell with all of us, male and female.
I know, but I do it with that. But it'd be more creepy, you know.
You are such a man hoe. You are such a man hoe.
It is true, very true.
No, he's a gigolo, so
no, I'm a
only
gigolo.
The cooler kind.
That's jiggling. Jiggle. Oh, right.
Well, I can do that too with my ass. I just can't do it on stream.
I don't want to see your butt twerking with a butt plug in. Thank you.
My ass jiggles just as much, all right?
But it's not as sexy when your ass jiggles as when my boobs jiggle.
Oh, it's plenty sexy when my ass jiggles. It's just nobody pays attention.
Except trust.
Like I actually have to do that, look in a mirror, like behind me, and just go smack. It was like, oh yeah, that's sexy.
We are freaking out him. We know this, right? We have
so
completely fucked up his stream.
It's so much fun.
I know, right? It's like as much fun as getting bent over. I mean,
anime night. Uncomfortable fact about me. I actually own a butt plug wolf tin and the wolf ears.
Naughty, spank.
Oh my goodness.
This is a nice small thing to paddle you with, right?
From the looks of it, from the distance I'm sitting at from this phone, it looks like you're trying to spank my ass with a fish.
No. No. This is a single bone.
It's reflective, like a fucking rainbow carp.
Because it's painted.
Rainbow trout.
Fucker. Painted, fucker. It's the large version of this bone. which is this is the shoulder blade of a standard female bison. This is the shoulder blade of a bull bison. They're real bone.
It's just it's the reflective painting.
Well, my husband's got to be able to see how he's spanking me in the dark. I mean,
First off, why are the lights off anyway? That's boring.
it varies depending on the day and the mood.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just don't want to go through the effort of getting me a blindfold, so we got to keep it something surprising what he's doing to me, right?
Yeah, I guess. I'm not into any of that. I like to keep things pretty vanilla. You know, I'm all about the romance.
Says the guy with a wolf butt plug. I like to keep it vanilla.
That's pretty vanilla. It's just
No, it's not. No, it's fucking not.
Yeah, it is. It's
Butt
not
plugs are not vanilla. Butt
It's
plugs
not
are
extreme.
not vanilla.
It's not extreme.
It's not vanilla.
Well, it's also not extreme either.
Neither is paddling. And
And
BDSM is borderline. It depends on what you do.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, really, it's not like, okay, it's not vanilla, but it's like on the scale of kinkiness, it's not high up there. Okay.
See, I think the anal stuff is worse than a lot of the bondage stuff myself.
Huh?
Yeah.
Really?
I do not get the attraction to anal stuff. Gross. Ick.
Well, before I met my wife, I was dating a lot of men, so the only hole there was the butt.
You or them?
Both. What does it matter?
I was just trying to figure out if you were the butch or the bitch.
How about the switch?
Look at his face when I said that.
How about the switch?
Oh god, that's even worse. Now you don't know what you're getting in the bedroom. Am I getting the bitch or am I getting the butch? Which is it?
Yeah, what are you getting? Are you going to get somebody, you get to bend over, or are they going to try and make you drop the soap? I mean.
No, there's no soap dropping. It's, hey, bend over.
Head between your knees, bitch. I mean.
Or we
He's
just
going to leave that up for a while we have this conversation, isn't he?
Huh?
He's going to leave that up for a while we're having this conversation, isn't he?
Probably.
Well, while we're on this topic, let's talk about the fellatio, right?
Ugh. Alrighty.
So again, are you a switch, bitch, or butch?
Switch.
Because personally, there's something about that pull sliding down your throat.
I can't deep throat.
You just lost points.
Hey, not my fault I throw up every time they try to shove it down.
And remember, boys and girls, it's not deep throating unless you can tongue the balls while you do it.
Yeah, I can't deep throat because it feels like my throat is getting crushed every time.
Well, it kind of is, but it's kind of sexy.
Yeah, well, I can't do it. I would love to. I've practiced. I've tried for years.
So is it the throat crushing the penis or the penis crushing the throat? Which
kind
is
of
it?
both.
So, yeah, a little bit of both. I've
And
tried.
now, if
I've
you get an
gagged, I've
art
thrown
for
up.
it, if you get an art for it, you can swallow without ever tasting it. Just saying.
Yeah,
By
I've
the way,
kind of
yes, I am gonna leave these banners up just
You're like,
to
holy
get the
crap,
people.
he's in a mood, right?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've just gotten used to tasting it. I'm okay with it.
When more guests show up and everything, I will update the second banner. So
It also is. It depends on the person. It depends on their diet. It depends on your mood that day. I'm sorry, if they're eating a lot of garlic and asparagus, you don't want to swallow that shit and taste it. I mean,
Well, here's the thing. I love garlic and I love asparagus. So,
your poor wife. I mean,
nah, she's not into doing that.
oh, and so in that case, you poor you. I mean,
What do you-
I threw an invite to Raccoon, so hopefully, if he's not asleep or in the liquor cabinet again, he'll come up.
I am
actually-
awaiting
he's
news
recovering.
to be
He's recovering.
monetized.
So,
I have
he
applied
probably
to
won't show
get
up.
money. Yes, I have.
He probably won't show up. So, yeah.
Bend
Well,
over,
the
Fatal. I need
invite's
to
there.
test out my
Well,
paddle.
the invite's there for him.
Huh?
I said, bend over, Fatal. I need to test out my paddle.
No thanks. I'm not into spanking. If you could just turn it off.
You're so weird. See, to me, yeah, I like paddles and stuff, but honestly, there's nothing like a nice firm hand just smacking and grabbing parts.
See, I don't mind a quick smack and a grab and a rub here and there, but at the same time, I just
Put that back. Look, if you get a few bruises or broken bones, that's just part of the fun.
no.
I've broken my wrist, my knee, toes, and my thumb different times in sex acts.
Yeah, that's just not fun. I'm not a pain person.
Pain without love, pain, can't get enough pain. I like it rough because I'd rather feel pain than nothing at all.
See, I'm not a fan of 3 Days Grace either.
I don't give a shit.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's like one of their very few songs that is decent. But there's another song that's decent. I can't remember what it's
Actually, they
called.
were quite good the first couple albums. They just got really weird fast.
I think the only song I really liked from them was "Living in a World So Cold." Is that one of their songs, or am I thinking of a different band?
I'm trying to remember now. Fuck, you're making me have to think.
Living in a world so cold. Something like that, I think. It was like the only song I really liked from them.
See, I have never cared. I'm sure that is them, but I've never cared what other people like. I don't give a fuck if a band is popular, unpopular. If every friend I have hates them, if every friend I have loves them, if I feel their music and it connects to me, great. If I don't, fuck them.
Well, yeah, that's basically how I'm like. I listen to whatever I want to listen to. If anybody, like, I got people always trying to give me suggestions. I'll listen to them, and then I'm like, yeah.
If people give me suggestions, I'll listen to them. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. But if I don't like them, I'm not going to keep listening to them. I don't care what other people think. Listen to Amgar and dark pop and gothic trance and stuff too. What's the point of people? I mean,
it's just like when it comes to like. Really, every time somebody gives me a suggestion, I just kind of want to give them. I kind of want to give them like a flash of like this game called Hit or Miss. Like,
I listen to things in almost every genre and style and type, depending on what it is. And some that people would think I would like because the two of them are not that far apart in how they sound. I'll love one and I'll hate the other because they just don't quite connect with me.
Yeah,
You know?
pretty much. Like, I love Cannibal Corpse, but I don't like Deicide. You know?
That's a band I can't stand.
Which one?
Cannibal.
Cannibal Corpse? Oh, I love Cannibal Corpse.
Their voices irritate the fuck out of me, and while I don't mind gratuitous violence, it's just immature the way they write it.
That's kind of the point, really.
Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of really immature humor. I don't like South Park. I don't like half of that shit either, because I'm not a fan of that style of humor.
Their music's far from humor.
Mm-hmm.
But no,
so that's the personal thing, you know?
Yeah. I like Cannibal Corpse, but I can't stand Deicide, yet their lyrics are almost exactly the same. Not really. I mean, but like.
I love the people who always go, well, you're a fan of this symphonic or this female-fronted band, then you must like this one too. And it's like, why? Because they have girls who have semi-similar voices. That there's a lot fucking more to this band than that.
Well, a lot of people are sitting there like, you like black metal, don't you? I'm like, oh yeah, I like black metal. Well, do you like this band? Cradle of Filth? Nope, don't like Cradle of Filth. Never did.
As much as a headbanger as I am, and I listen to Gothic, and I listen to Dark, and I listen to Doom and Draconian and shit like that, I'm not into the actual black metal, because to me, I can't follow the lyrics enough for me to sing along, and that's what I love, is to sing along. I'll listen to the stuff with all that fucked up shit in it, but it needs context for me so I can get into it, you know?
Like, for me, like, it's different. Like, I'm all about sound, really. I could care less. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes because the lyrics are a big part of it, but for me, it's all about sound. For me, if I can't go on a vision quest or do music, then it's not really music to me. So.
And see, to me, vision quests do not involve music. They are a sacred meditative thing that I do not do around other humans. I need to be in the woods.
Like this is why I listen to so much melodic death metal and symphonic metal. And
now, melodic death metal, you're getting more of operatic and stuff in it, and it's not quite as guttural. It's easier to follow. I like that more than straight death metal.
Oh, I like straight death metal because there are times where I just need to.
There's other things I like when I'm in that mood where I just want something that's screaming and angry. And death metal, to me, it falls in between these genres, and it's just the place where I don't quite fit. You know?
Well, I mean, I mainly do melodic death metal, like Disharmony Mundi, Children of Bodom, you know. Then there's Darkest Hour. They're okay. Even though for a melodic death metal band, they're okay. I'm just not into them like other ones. Like you got Skyfire, classic Bloodstained Child, Sonic Syndicate. The Unguided especially. Those are good.
I will listen to anything from types of classical and cultural musics going back thousands of years to metals and rocks now, to even some of the genres. There's at least something in pretty much any genre that I like. The genres I really hate almost everything in is just country and rap. That's it.
I like classic country.
Even I can't stand twangy voices and that. Fuck. Ugh. But even the ones that everyone makes fun of, where you get into some of the goth trance or some of the emo, there's still some good in those if you find the right bands. You just have to dig through all the shit to find the good ones.
Yeah.
You know?
Really, music's all subjective anyway, so.
To a degree. There is a certain point where they're not actually technically talented and it's just screeching and banging. That's not what most metal is, but there are bands like that.
Yes.
Where it is not, there's no technical talent. Beyond that, it's subjective. It has to do with the personality of the person listening, and it always will. And so I think there's a bias in when people go, well, this band sucks, this one doesn't. It's like, well, that's personal opinion. You can never truly judge for that.
I was just saying, there's a lot of people out there who say, "Oh, how can you know?" Like, I'll say, "I don't like the band Guar." Well, how come you don't like the band Guar? I'm like, well, I mean, their outfits are cool. Instrumentally, they're okay. I just don't like the band.
I can piss off everybody and say that, you know, there's a lot of bands that, yeah, they played a huge part in rock and metal history, and I'm not going to say I dislike them, because there's a lot of stuff I like or love of theirs, but they're severely over fucking rated to people, and people act like they're gods when they're not, and I would put Metallica in that list. They have some amazing stuff, but they're not the fucking end-all be-all. They're not great overall. They've got a lot of shit, too.
My only two favorite albums from Metallica are Kill 'Em All, being number one at the top, and that was their first one, and Ride the Lightning. That's it. Those are the only albums. Other than that, I don't care.
I like some of Black, but it's overrated severely. The albums before Black are pretty good, but they're still, even there, not every song, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, there are a few songs on the Black album I like. I'm not going to deny it, because I grew up in the 90s, and that's what was on the radio.
Black album is one of those where, while technically there's no songs that are actually bad per se, they're not necessarily all great either, as much as people act like they are.
The Black album is where it just kind of splits. It's just like some are good, but the rest of it, everything just kind of is where it splits. It's where everything
is what I would say. I wouldn't say they're bad. I wouldn't say they're good. They're mediocre.
Yeah, I mean, but like Master of Puppets, and it's kind of the same thing with AC/DC. I do not like AC/DC after Bon Scott.
There's a lot of bands, I like their early work, I don't like their later stuff. Or there's bands where I like their early work, they got really sucky for a while, and then they got good again. There's a band that most people don't know, regardless of me, where their first album was actually a really good blend of classic rock and stuff with the softer female vocals and a bit of rowdy in it, but it was actually really well put together. And then their second album was just, it's like they didn't know how to play their fucking instruments. Yeah, they're doing more guttural stuff. They're going darker and stuff, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. The vocals aren't good. And it's like suddenly they went from being, you know, all about free thought and all this stuff to kissing up to different religions. And it's like, what the fuck happened to you? And you're not good anymore.
It's kind of, it's almost like what happened to Deadlock, like Wolves and their other album, Manifesto. Those are like really good albums, and then all of a sudden they switched up their sounds, and they kind of went more oh gosh, what's that can't remember the genre, but they had a lot more of that genre of music into their music with the low, like, they detuned all the way straight down to like friggin' G tuning, and I'm just like, that's ridiculous.
I would say the bands that are hit or miss, that have some incredible epic moments and some blah moments, I would also count Camelot and Avantasia in those.
I like Camelot. Camelot's pretty good.
But they have some blah songs, and I love a lot of their stuff. I fucking love a lot of their stuff. But they have some stuff that's boring as fuck.
The only reason I got into Camelot was because I got into Camelot because I was listening to Cobra and the Lotus. And Cobra and the Lotus also falls into the category of hit or miss.
I found out about Camelot because I was doing a study on the history of Bathory, and their series on her came up. So,
yeah. Well, Cobra Page is married to somebody from Camelot. I just can't remember the vocals.
Yeah,
I think it's the vocals. So the guitar player.
Avantasia. I don't know if you know who they are.
No. What are your thoughts about
the guy that leads it? Was also Ed Guy. They made Avantasia big and famous by doing the Metal Opera series, which was a multi-disc set on the witch hunts and persecutions, where they had everything from Christian rockers to Sharon from Within to all these others come together and do all these massive epic songs and projects together. And it was huge, and it was beautiful, and it was people of multiple cultures and religions coming together to admonish a dark point of history without being hateful to each other. It was great. I don't like everything the band's done, but I have to admit that was fucking epic, you know?
What are your thoughts on Helium Prime?
Heard them, they're not one I got into, really.
I don't know what it is about them. Like, at first there was just like, I like them, but there's something I didn't quite like about them at first. And then the more I listened to their self-titled album, I was like, this is amazing. This is artwork at its finest.
Yeah, there's a lot of bands also I think are actually really talented, but they just don't quite gel with my style. So I'll sit there and listen, and I'll go, wow, that's pretty fucking cool, but then I won't listen again, you know?
Well, as it turns out, I was looking through my Spotify, and it turns out my most listened genre is otacore. And I'm like, what the hell is that? I actually had to look it up.
One of my most listened to genres is Viking metal.
Let me guess. Amon Amarth is up there somewhere?
Yeah, but not as much as a lot of others, actually. They're okay on a few songs. They're not a great one.
Well, here's the thing about Amon Amarth. I can only listen to so many songs about the blood eagle so many times.
Okay. There's a song that from a bunch of different YouTube musicians that they did together, which is, God, I cannot remember how to pronounce this fucking band that hosted it, where they brought in like Melissa from Rage of Light and Ad Inferium and a bunch of guys who were in these different bands. Yeah, I fucking love Melissa Bonney. She's fucking amazing female growler.
I just wish Rage of Light had more stuff to put out on Spotify. They don't have much on Spotify.
But they brought her in, a couple other females, a bunch of these different male vocalists from everything from like Speed to Viking and stuff like that. And it's literally warriors of the world where they're actually singing about comparing fighting for metal to rise again in power and glory and culture with the Viking wars of old and dying for your cause and stuff. And it's a really good song. But I can never figure out how to pronounce the fucking band because the band that hosted it, their name is not in English at all, and it's a really long, complicated name. But I love the song. It's one of my it'll get me up and pumping and I want to fight mode songs, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot of songs like that too. Lately I've been listening to what is it? Gill Studio or something. Mm-hmm. I've noticed that he's been doing a lot of rock and metal covers of the Persona games. And I really what the hell is up with this gate?
I like the female growlers and screamers who can do the really dark growls and screams, but can also do really ethereal singing in between them too. Yeah. Get into like Ginger, Arch Enemy, Rage of Light, and all those things. I fucking love them.
Arch Enemy? Okay, is that with the Agonist vocalist or pre-Agonist vocalist?
Mostly the older stuff.
Okay.
It's like there's some bands that I loved and then they tanked fast. But I remember there's a period I got very into Tassir, and then the singer that they had went all nutcase and wanted everything for her, even though she was only doing a fraction of the work. And she left, and then they brought in another singer, and they tried to go too much from the darker female voice that they had to more operatic, and it didn't work considering they were a fucking vampire band. And they fucking destroyed themselves and pissed me off because I love their shit.
There's another opera, there's another group I think you might like. Let me look up Spotify because I got them on my playlist.
Assuming I don't know them, because when you get into symphonic, operatic, and stuff, you'd be surprised how many obscure fucking bands in that realm I know.
I don't think this one's obscure at all.
Then I probably know them.
Let me. Yeah, they got a Latin sounding name.
Oh.
Your library. Metal Goddess, where you at? Huh?
I'm just waiting for you to tell me which one.
I'm looking through the playlist right now. I gotta find the cover. Oh, it's Diabolus in Musica.
I know
Crimson
them, and
Green.
also their lead singer actually was in a guest vocalist for one of my favorite bands, Dark Sarah, on one of their songs.
Yeah, I do like Rage of Light's Lollipop Candyman cover. That was
I
good.
love the fact that it's just absolutely fucked up. It's like this dark growling to a pop music sex song. It's like fucked up as hell. There's something about it that even though every part of you says this is so fucking wrong, you still sit there listening to it going, ha ha, right? Chrysalis, I wish had gone further. When they're Operatica, which turned into Operatica Element, I also wish had gone further because they're fucking amazing. Emerald Mind as well. Okay, I'm a weirdo. I do not have normal taste, do I?
No. Well, there's another band called Straight Line Stitch I've been getting into, like, over the past year. They've got some decent stuff. I like, they kind of remind me of Undead Corporation to an extent. I really like an Undead Corporation.
But yeah, you keep saying Rage of Light. You do know Melissa also hosts Ad Inferium as the lead singer.
No, I didn't.
Look them up. They're very similar in a lot of ways to Rage of Light. In fact, the reason she left Rage of Light is because both bands wanted to go full time and she couldn't do it.
Yeah. What about Amaranth?
Not bad.
I like their trancy side. Their trancy side's pretty good. I just don't know. I mean, they just don't. I liked them at first when I first listened to them. They just don't hold up to like other bands in some way, and so, like, they kind of have like a weak. They kind of have like a weak standing against other bands, but I do like their music. Like, I think their song Nexus or Dynamite was really good. Or On the Rocks was also really good. What else do we got here? Delane.
Love them. Even though they have some weird shit I'm not as into, but overall very much enjoy. Let me think here a second. After Forever's a given because Floor, even though I don't like her as much in Nightwish as I did in After Forever and Revamp. Minute Soul is one that you have to listen to if you like the Viking side of it, because the female that started as the lead singer of that band is the sister to Liv Christine, and now both sisters are in the band together.
G'day.
Hello,
Maybe that
David.
stupid banner down so people can see who's on here.
All right.
Well, a trigger warning? Really?
It's just
we
for
went off
the fun.
of some pretty
Just
crass
put
sex
5
topics.
trigger people on your forehead. Leave it alone. Or on your.
Okay, I don't know you, but I'd like to get to know you. See, I don't do a trigger warning. I just say my guests do not represent me, the fucking wankers.
Kind of like that, basically. I just I threw it out there as a joke. So.
G'day, fans, and listeners and affiliates. Welcome to another edition of Trigger Warning. There, see? That's how you do it.
So who are we talking to here? I don't know if I remember this person.
Me?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Dave. I'm on the men's room. Future
But Dave's
Fantasy
not
Empire.
here. Sorry, that was immature as fuck, but I still did it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel sorry.
Yeah. I'm a writer. Oh, no. I gave it away. I'm not a mystery writer, no. I'm a naughty boy writer. I write science fiction, fantasy at an adult level. I use words.
So you're not an absidarian troglodyte?
No, I'm not an absolute troglodyte. I actually have... My characters have a sex life.
No, it didn't say absolute. It said absidarian.
Oh. No,
that's a word for simpletons.
Yeah, all right. Well, I must have failed the test. I didn't know that one. Although I do, sometimes I can swallow a thesaurus, and other days it's like the something idiot. I'll get back to that.
Some days when the trolls start bitching at me, I will sit there and just go, "Fuck you, you fucking fucker fucks." And sometimes they'll start bitching at me, and I'll tell them that they're absidarian troglodytes pontificating on their own benign delusions of adequacy. It depends on the day.
Yes.
Depends on the day.
But as always, there is something to remember. Most of the little fucking trigger warning little troglodytes who go, report! Call on my friends! Report them! Well, not friends. I mean, they're anti-fire cell members.
Meanwhile, these are the same people, because they whine and bitch at everything, because everything offends them. They're the ones who make it harder for people with legitimate PTSD triggers, with legitimate seizure issues and light sensitivities, because everybody lumps us in with the people who are just offended at everything.
Oh, if you have light sensitivity, don't go see Avatar 2.
I wasn't going to see the fucking acid-dropping Smurfs that think they're fucking natives anyways. Fuck James Cameron and his view of natives.
Oh,
fuck him hard, fuck him repeatedly, and I hope he gets fucking stuck on it.
You live in utopia. You don't need houses. You don't need technology. You can be happy, swim in the ocean, and
I
dance
am a
with the
fucking
wolves.
tribal naturalist, and even I want to choke the shit out of James Cameron when he talks. His view of natives is that we're all like tree-hugging hippies. He doesn't realize that our entire culture is based on fighting and hunting, right?
Put it this way. Why are they carrying spears? They're spear chuckers. What? And they got spears and bows and arrows? Like,
no, we weren't peace lovers. No, yes, Manifest Destiny, all the genocidal shit was obviously wrong. That does not mean that we were a bunch of fucking peaceniks that were sitting here all coexisting in harmony. No, we fucking fought each other over stupid shit sometimes too.
Yeah, and you also got to remember, not all of you did it. A lot of you, when they deployed the first small ships, came out, welcomed everybody, and when they saw firearms, they said, "How much land do you want for all those guns?" That's not a lie. Jamestown.
To be fair, you're talking about
Nova Scotia.
You're talking about way up in the Northeast.
Yeah,
thousands of miles from where my tribes were. So very different cultures.
Yes, but different cultures did from Florida. Jamestown and Nova
different
Scotia.
Cultures did all kinds of things. I get into it with people who do natives did this. It's like, which tribe did what? Yeah. Because you're talking about natives did this. It's the same thing. It's like saying, well, Europeans did this. Which one? Were they Scottish? Were they German? Were they fucking... They're not the fucking same.
Yeah, but when it comes to repeating history and making mistakes, I'm sorry. But, well, other than Germany, Russia...
Well, generally speaking, repeating history and making mistakes is a human condition we're all fucking really good at for some reason. But no, I had this one woman that came into one of my streams when I was interviewing a friend and starts just spewing absolute anti-native bigotry in my chat as I'm talking to my friend about the different ties we have to different tribes and stuff. As they're going, shut the fuck up, you're in my channel. Respect my culture. And her response was, I respect your culture. I adopted a Mohawk boy.
What a trash burger.
Time out. Wait, you respect my culture as a Lakota woman from a monotheistic hunting warrior tribe that was nomadic because you adopted a kid from a multi-theistic agrarian tribe that was sedentary. What the fucking hell, you idiot bitch, right?
So he's not a Mohawk boy anymore. He's your pet.
Yeah, because obviously she didn't care about the culture. She didn't understand it. She adopted him so she could say, look at me, I'm so tolerant. It was like a token.
Yeah, pet. And he's not a Mohawk boy anymore because he's not going to be raised in his culture. He's going to be raised he's going to be raised to be a blue-head Smurf.
Right. And that's the thing. This is what these hippies do. They sit there and say the most ridiculous, stereotypical bullshit about us because they can't face the fact that statistically, guess what? No matter how much the left tries to portray us as tree-hugging hippies, the majority of natives are the most pro-life, pro-gun, and pro-military group there is. We have a higher military service per capita than any other group by almost 5 times.
Yeah, not only that, some of the without the native code talkers, America would have been kissing their own asses in World War II.
Which was not Navajo were the one who were always credited for it, but there were 7 specific tribes that did it, and guess what? Lakota were among them. They have the documents of the Lakota. Yeah,
that's in fact, multi. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a big thing. It was a huge part of how we won the war and fought the guess what? It was native code talkers, and it was because we actually believe in our country. As much as they want to act like America's horrible and nobody likes it. And yeah, there are issues with some laws that are still pretty bigoted. There are issues with some people that still are. We need to revamp the reservation system. We need to trash half this shit, but that doesn't mean we're a bad country. It means we're working on getting better.
And the thing is, most hippies don't even know that their culture, or well, for want of a better word, is neo-fascist. It's a mixture of Buddhism and fascism. It's derived from the soldiers who came back from Europe after World War II with carrying European hashish out of Turkey.
Of the early American progressives, who were the people who were inspirations for the eugenicist movement.
Yes. And
so let's get that straight. These are the people who were mass murdering my people. When you think about this stuff, Custer wanted to become president on the basis of eradicating all natives because we were subhuman. He was a devout Democrat.
Yes, and let's not forget Bill Gates.
God.
He is like well, anyway, back to the hippie movement. It was a agrarian movement with Turkish hashish that was a mixture of which mixed with the Buddhist, the so-called Buddhist converts who came out, who spent years in Japan for occupying Japan and trying to Americanize Japan, and when they returned to America, they didn't recognize the country they left because the war had fundamentally changed people's lives, and the technology advanced so fast that it created so much social upheaval. But they came back to an America that was trying to pretend the war didn't exist. And as they were returning to America, another group, and mostly, as you say, veterans, so that would include a lot of natives, were being sent to Korea at the same time. And there was also, and they saw that World War II was a complete and utter failure. Never brought the peace they were promised, didn't give them any peace. They couldn't sleep at night, So they thought that they thought that Christianity and all these other, Christianity failed, democracy failed. So they adopted the Germanic ideology. The progressives are derived from Antifa, and Antifa used to be a Stalinist movement, but Hitler killed the leaders and took it over.
Careful with certain names when it comes to German stuff, though, because they will flag channels for us hard.
I'm just saying, a certain guy killed the leaders of Antifa, took it over. And the thing is, most people don't realize this. that the progressives started in Germany. They actually led a failed coup against Adolf from within the party. They were a wing of that party.
Yes and no. What became the modern progressives did, but the early American progressives that those guys looked up
I know.
to
That's
started
what.
in the 1800s.
Yeah, I'm talking about a convergence. That they're a fact. They converge.
It's gone back and forth from the American to the German, and it's really, really creepy line if you actually follow it. It's the Overton window times 1,000, and it's creepy.
Yeah, but the progressives, the original progressives that who came over came from Scotland, and they were anti-English revolutionaries, and they started, and they were they had clubs like the Hellfire Club, the the Stoic Society was actually worshipping Stolos, which is like I think Stolos is mentioned in Ars Demonica.
There's very much a Mullah culture that we have right now too, which is creepy.
But it's a different kind of the Moloch culture is not the same as the great. You see the great owl. That's not Moloch.
They've kind of split from each other, where a lot of the people who are in both cultures traverge anymore and they traverge on the fact that let's kill off everybody we think is inferior to us,
which is something we can't mention on this.
But you were talking about admitting the issues people have, and that's one of the things I think is the big problem is all these people from all these cultures, they're unwilling to talk about the flaws and the faults in their own culture. It's like, we're always right, these guys are always wrong. No, okay, I can cite an example. Now, history books have this wrong. They claim that the Sioux migrated into the Black Hills. That's not true.
I thought they were forced.
No, it's beyond that for that anyways.
Yeah.
They did force them not into the Black Hills, but into the Badlands for the reservations. But this area was the homeland of it. They claim that like 100 years before that, we migrated in here from elsewhere. What happened was in the early days of the tribe, the Sheridan, Sioux, and Cheyenne split from the same tribe. When they did, several sections of the Sioux split for different tasks. The Lakota decided they wanted to know what was on this continent. Everything. They wanted to know what was within the reach of God's creation. So for hundreds of years, they traveled this entire continent bit by bit as a tribe, figuring out where everything was, leaving bits of their language and their artifacts with the tribes along the way.
Yep.
Because of this, but because the Black Hills were sacred land, we were supposed to be guardians of it. The tribe split in order to do that. Half of them went, half of them stayed. The tribe that stayed, over the time the other was traveling, changed their name and culture repeatedly, because that's how you develop through history. What became the Lakota and the Sioux there did as well. And so by the time they re-met to each other, they weren't under the same name and not completely the same culture anymore. One side was unwilling to let the other side come back in. The other side was unwilling to give up their homeland because the other side wouldn't welcome that back in. So what ended up happening is a massive war between different fragments of the same fucking tribe, where they ended up killing off a large portion of each other.
Yeah.
Big problem, big mistake on both sides. But
I grew up learning that Custer was sent in to pacify an Indian uprising, and when I found that was never came across one history book for a long time that never even mentioned that at first he was trying to settle disputes with people raiding the Indians for so-called hoards of gold that he supposedly had. It's just, when it comes to history, I can't trust it anymore because there are just so many things left out all the time.
Where I've sat there and done research because both sides are lying on most of this stuff. So you have to start looking for actual artifacts, for actual documentation. I've caught them changing documentation on the supposed Lakota culture on different monuments and stuff like that. The reason a lot of these things are important is because the reason they're changing it is to try to manipulate people. Yes, this is the Lakota homeland. It's been the Holy Land to us for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and it always has been for thousands and thousands of years. The problem is that it doesn't mean that we were right either when we came home. And it doesn't mean that the tribe that was here when we came home was right in trying to keep us out either. Both sides were basically siblings killing each other over their house.
Like the border wars between England and Scotland that everybody's conveniently forgotten. That the Scottish were not exactly innocent babes in the wood being invaded by England. It was actually the Celts were raiding England for hundreds of years alongside the Vikings.
And yes, the genocides were horrific, and the stuff that was done to natives was wrong. And yes, the natives had a lot more grace for what they were doing because they were defending their homes versus being the invader. However, there were still tribes that were doing horrific things to innocent people, regardless of who they were. Yeah. Well, I'm talking about how they handled dealing with settlers or other people they met of other cultures.
Now, there's one thing
you can't erase those mistakes in order to call out Manifest Destiny and the racism and genocide that happened, because both are wrong.
Yeah. And before we talk about Manifest Destiny and genocide, there was also the attempted genocide of the natives in the South by the invading Mexican Aztec.
Oh God, that's what pisses me off is when they always talk about when the West was stolen from Mexico. It's like, you are fucking Spaniards. The only reason it was at all considered yours is because you got here slightly sooner than the rest of the invaders.
Yeah,
the whole Mexico versus the whole argument between Mexico versus England owning it was like two burglars breaking into a home and then fighting over who gets to keep it while the owner is tied up and gagged.
Well, you can't say the Mexicans were innocent babes in the woods because they were murdering all the natives around them. And again,
that's what I'm saying. That's the Mexicans are Spaniards who mixed with the tribes that they slaughtered. That's what Mexico is.
Yeah. Well, I would say what happened is definitely the conquistadors were asked to help various tribes. And I think when they saw how the cannibalism, the slavery, the mass murder, and
that explains a couple of the tribes they went after, not most of them, because most of the tribes didn't do that.
But what I'm saying is, hold on. I'm saying when they saw all that, that is when they came up with Manifest Destiny, that they were destined to save these people, right? They had their savior complex was suddenly enlarged or enraged, but I think it was enlarged further by as they got more successful, their armies swelled. And I don't know if you know anything about military culture, but could you imagine a general recruiting 10 million people?
And that's the thing is, yes, it started as, oh, look at these savages, we have to save them. And it turned to, look at these savages, we have to save the world from them, let's kill them all. And mass murdering women and children who had nothing to do with anything. And that's where Manifest Destiny went from early Crusades to full Spanish Inquisition very quickly.
Yes. And a lot of people don't understand the origins of the Spanish Inquisition, and it's a complex 100 years of transformation. But in the last 10 years of the Spanish Inquisition, it went from, right, let's find everybody who's trying to destroy society to let God sort them out.
and there was, throughout the entire history of the Spanish Inquisition, there was also a lot of persecution against Jews because they were considered an easy target to persecute historically.
Because they were working for the Islamic
and
invaders.
That doesn't mean that doesn't mean they were always innocent. No. But there was a lot of that. Yes, there were some Jewish groups that were involved in some of that, but most of the Spanish Inquisition, they were torturing them and trying to force convert them, and that's where it gets the bad history.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as an example of history, where same with the Inquisition, not just the Inquisition in Spain, but
the Crusades didn't start as trying to force convert. They started as going after the people that attacked the church and the people in Europe from the Middle East who were trying to force them to convert. But it went very quickly from let's fight back the attackers to let's invade their home and force them to change now.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
don't
where
forget,
it lost its way.
there were 400 years of attacks before Christianity united
Mhm.
against the invaders.
Well, that's
And
why I said it
yeah.
didn't start as a negative thing, but we can also
No.
say that the end was.
Yes, but I always think with history, you always hear this, particularly from crusaders, for want of a better word, that the ends justify the means,
That's one of the most dangerous lines of history.
or for the greater good,
Or the enemy of my enemy.
Yeah,
because that one's been used so many times in history to justify unholy alliances and mass murder. It's not even funny.
Like,
or don't panic, we're the government, we're here to help.
Do you know, this is why I cringe. This is why I fucking cringe every time I see that stupid carry on stuff that everyone uses in culture now, because it started as propaganda in the freaking Cold War stuff to try to. It was horrible shit. It was to don't panic, do as the government says while your neighbors are somehow getting killed and disappearing. That's what it fucking was.
I know this is a touchy subject, but during the Cold War, over 20,000 Americans were murdered during the Kennedy era as enemies of the state. And most Americans don't even know about it. Most Americans do not know about Operation Phoenix. And when they do look it up, all they see is, it was something that happened in Vietnam. No.
Operation Phoenix was real. MK Ultra was real. There's documentation on these. The reason why some people deny them so much is because they want to dismiss anything that's creepy, scary, or that's uncomfortable to them as conspiracy theory.
Yes. And I met a Vietnamese girl, and I went to Vietnam to meet her family, and I ended up marrying her. And I've met people from both sides of the war. I met a South Vietnamese officer who lost his sight when his hand grenade blew up on him. And it turned out that that was sabotaged by the French factory where it was made. A whole batch of them was sabotaged to explode on when the pin was pulled. Lucky that, and it had no fortunate for him, it had also been drained by most of its explosive because it was poorly made. So he lost his sight. And he said when they started the war in South Vietnam, the objectives was very clear, right? They were fighting against a pro-Russian government, which was alien to them, right? But when the Americans promised election, right? He had already lost his sight, and his neighbor was a couple of doors down. Was my ex's parents? They were in the rubber union, and from their perspective, all they saw was different governments all trying to enforce French rule on South Vietnam.
We have a good country, but we've made a lot of mistakes, including intentional ones. Look, they allowed Pearl Harbor to happen. They knew it was going to happen. They have documents on it before it hit because they knew it would rally people together to fight. And
when it reached Truman's desk, he never reached Truman's desk. It was intercepted by the admiral who went to
they kept him from hearing about it so that it would happen, so that they could rally people to fight.
And you know what they did after the war? They even murdered the Japanese radio operator who sent the message to try and cover it up. They executed him as a war propagandist because it was a woman, actually. Tokyo Rose.
Yeah, Tokyo Rose was an interesting person, by the way. If you actually look, she did so much to try to help this country, and they still killed her.
But the thing is, she never lied. You were their ally.
No,
you did betray them. You saw America sold out.
She called out both sides heavily.
Yes. She also talked about the American war crimes. She also urged the Japanese to act with honor. There was a petition of so many Americans who said no, she was not a war propagandist. And if you want war propaganda, look at Walter Cronkite. He lied about the status of the Vietnam War. That the Americans were winning, and then all support was withdrawn because Walter Cronkite accused the Americans of war crimes. Really? Now you care about war crimes?
And I hate to break it to you, there isn't a country that at some point hasn't committed war crimes.
Excuse me, all war is a crime. Alexander the Great.
I have disagreed with that because there are places where you have to fight to stop atrocities. I do believe that. And it goes with the same as self-defense laws.
Yeah.
But when you get to the point where you go beyond stopping evil to actually embracing it, you're now the bad guy.
Yeah. So, as I said in Vietnam, you went from supporting a government that was trying to form that was both anti-French and anti-Russian. But then you tried to Americanize the country and when the election didn't go your way in '63, Kennedy oppressed it. He bombed Cu Chi, which just happened to be where my wife's uncle lived, and he went from being the next day listed as a North Vietnamese officer. His farm and family were bombed. He and his family survived, but many of his neighbors didn't. They had nothing to do. He bombed a riot. He sent 3 planes over and bombed the riot. And this was documented by the Swiss journalist who was covering it at the time. And even today, that man is banned from America. And there was an Australian journalist too who covered it. And they one of the accused war criminals still has his name blacked out, but there were 6 Americans who were named that for working with the not only the South Vietnamese generals were working for the North, right? And some of the Americans were too, and they deliberately committed war crimes to agitate the situation.
Well, I mean, I look at it this way. I'll go back to using a little of my own family and cultural history to explain some of these positions. I talked about the fact that I could absolutely call out what my tribe did to the different parts of it. And the fact that we're still split into several versions of the Cheyenne, several versions of the Sheridan, and multiple Sioux tribes, and we won't come back together. And there's a big issue with this because we are all the same original tribe. Yeah. So there's that divide anyways is a big issue and a big reason why we can't honestly say that we're innocent in 9. Yes, okay, when there's good intentions that lead to bad places. Do you actually know what the Indian renegades were? They aren't what most people thought they were.
Now, are we talking about the ones who crossed over into Mexico and formed
the renegades period? That were Indian, because they all came from the same thing. These were people who were exiled by different tribes for violent crimes, including sexual ones.
Oh, no, I'm thinking of a different group then, because there were a group of...
the renegades that were part of the whole Alamo era and stuff, those weren't Indian renegades. Those were just renegades.
Yeah, they were called the Renegades. They had crossed over into Mexico and joined the French army to fight against America to take over Texas.
Yeah, that's a separate thing. So the Indian Renegades were the ones where most of the crimes that were blamed on different tribes came from this group that were exiled from different tribes.
They were
this is a long history. Yeah. There is a history point behind that where you go back a few hundred years before the settlers, where the renegades were gaining numbers. They had been gathering members from all these different tribes who were exiled. And they were getting really big as this band of basically marauding Vikings, sexual assaulting psychopaths. And a lot of the...
which every history unfortunately has.
And a lot of the tribes were getting concerned about the dangers of trying to keep these people away from their women and children, which you would understand, right?
Yeah,
so you had 2 tribal responses.
Yeah.
You had the Cherokee just wanted them to leave them alone. So they made a peace accord with them saying that if you leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. The Sioux declared them an enemy and anyone who will support them. So what happened was the Cherokee and Sioux, who had gotten along up to that point, became vicious enemies of each other for over 600 years. Ooh. And both of them had to do with the fact that both of them were trying to call out a way to find safety against this violent group that was a danger to their people. Because
I get you. Yeah.
both started as noble intention to try to prevent evil being done.
Both thought, well, we can't fight this evil, but we don't want to aggravate it, and hopefully
And then they found
they'll leave us alone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so one side said, well, I'll just make peace with them, so they'll leave us alone. And the other side said, if you're making peace with them, you're helping them. These guys are the psychos that nobody should be helping. And both sides had a legitimate point. But because it was so diametric to each other's cultures, they could not embrace each other on it. Now, they were not friends again.
Yeah.
For over 600 years, until the Lakota and the Sioux actually came in as double agents during the Trail of Tears and started rescuing the Cherokee.
Yeah.
That's when they finally made peace with each other again. Now you go to the Sioux reservations and you get a very mix of women, because there's a lot of Cherokee who were taken into the tribes and hidden among the tribe to protect them from the Trail of Tears. And so now you have the traditional Sioux build, which is me, which is the big, stocky, heavy, high forehead, high cheeks, solid face. The shoulders are really high arched, all this stuff. Very Sioux build. Whereas the Cherokee women tend to be very high forehead, very delicate, thin face, and very tiny women and very short.
Yeah.
You go to a lot of the Sioux reservations and you have a mix of women where even in the same family, you'll have one that's like almost 6 foot and built like me. Whereas, I'm almost 5'9" and I'm built like this. Whereas you have my sister who is barely 5 foot, scrawny as hell, even after multiple kids, and very flat features overall, because that was intermingled during the Trail of Tears to try to rescue them.
Yeah, I also read that there was one of the tribes who disappeared did the same thing. They commingled with various other groups as well.
Mohicans did.
So
did a couple of the Inuit tribes.
Yeah, and I was thinking of the Anastasi. They've been doing that already for a long time.
A lot of the southern tribes pretended to be black during the old days because there was less legal actions and less violence against black people than there was natives, and a lot of them looked similar.
Yeah, and there was also the tribes that I forget where, but there was also a tribe who decided to join in on the action and helped. I think it was Cohen and they acted as bodyguards and enforcers. That's the word I was trying to think of. Enforcers for the Cohens, who people may or may not know. The Cohens were the Cohens were the second richest slavers in America after the Roosevelts.
Yeah. There were, by the way, one of the tribes that ended up helping a lot of the slavers and taking slaves themselves was the Cherokee.
Yeah. I didn't know which tribe it was, but I knew there were a couple. Yeah.
Also
they worked for the Cohens and the Roosevelts, yeah.
See, I've always found this fascinating because, sorry, not every culture is built the same. And yeah, every culture has had good and bad in its history. Some have more bad than others, but every culture's had good and bad in their history. The only way to learn from it, good and bad, is to actually study the entire history. I also don't believe anyone, even from some of the darkest cultures, should be made to be ashamed of who they are to the point where they can't talk about the good and bad in their own culture and history. I don't care if you're literally the son of one of the biggest tyrants and dictators in the world. If you're not that person, you should be able to know yourself without being ashamed of what was done.
Yeah, considering it was Angolan immigrants who brought slavery to America, and yet the people who claim they want revenge, well, I'm sorry, go to Angola.
There were multiple tribes that were targeted and being shipped different places as slaves by Barbary pirates, by blacks.
Yeah, that's
during the slave trade era.
I'm saying
and
so it's Virginia.
It's and that one too, and it's really ridiculous when I have somebody tell me that you don't understand persecution because you're not black, or you have no right to talk about this. It's like, okay, I have said I don't celebrate Juneteenth because there were clauses written into the law so that it looked like you were giving equal rights to all, but it actually exempted natives from being within it because of the treaty system. It was
Mhm.
written intentionally to look like equal rights for all, but exempt natives from receiving them.
Same as the 3/5 rule. Any native who wasn't on it was to make sure that representation for the for any group not classified as an American citizen had less representation.
Yeah, and to not classify us as American citizens. We're in American land on treaties with the government was one of the most ridiculous racist things in history. And you didn't have to be on the reservations to not be considered American. If you were a native and you were born in an American city, they still didn't consider you American.
No, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. It's like the eugenicist movement seems to be born out of the most people don't understand the romantic period. It's not, they don't understand romance. Romance is the romification of culture in which women are worshipped. That's what romance is. So and they invented they chose one sort of quasi or universal goddess to replace God, Gaia. The Gaia movement was born out of the worship of women, and the eugenicists thought that the only way to achieve peace was to get rid of the savage, But they themselves
were actually more savage in that period. It's like I always tell people, because you get all these stereotypes on natives, and I've called out long lists of the bullshit both sides say, where one side paints us all as bloodthirsty cannibalistic savages and the other side paints us all as tree-hugging hippies, and it's all bullshit on both sides. But I sit there and I tell them, there's a history to this, and I explain it really simply. We did not invent scalping. That was actually started by the government offering money for Indian pelts and French fur trappers doing it to us. Yes. We, however, perfected it and did it back.
Yeah. It was scalping was first offered to the Sioux as a means to which they could verify the bounty. They put a bounty on certain people. And
it was done to several people that were very important to the tribe, who were beloved and who were innocent people. And so the tribe got pissed and started doing it back to everybody else. Yeah. And I'm not saying that that was a right response either, but facts in that case were it wasn't started by us. We, however, did hike it up to about 1,000,
Well, if you want to talk, part of romanticism is what they call now whitewashing, because that's what to romanticize. They romanticize the vampire. They romanticize the samurai. They even romanticize the Vikings. Yeah. You've seen that, right? You've seen the romanticization of the Vikings.
And I like a lot of the Viking metal and stuff like that, but I still know that the word Viking means pirate, and they were still murdering rapists.
No, well, it actually means sea king, and they were raiding rapists and slavers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Because if you actually look, they all come from the same origins of words. One turned into Viking, one turned into pirate. It's the same fucking thing. Yeah. It's just different cultures that developed it.
Yeah, people forget when Norway outraided Viking. That's what they called them. They weren't Vikings weren't one race. They were a group. And was a name assigned to the raiders who started out in the name of the Norwegian king to raise gold to modernize the kingdom.
And I think we're yapping so much the others can't get a word in edgewise, but I'm kind of enjoying the conversation.
Sorry, Anime, no. Sorry.
He's just sitting there watching us go at it like, this is interesting.
Well, we're not disagreeing. Don't mind us. We're not disagreeing with each other. We're just...
we're adding context to each other. We have slight disagreements where we fill context to each other. That's it. But it's interesting to learn from each other because, and most of everything you've said is stuff I've already studied and know, but I'm a history mythology nerd. I love this fucking stuff. So
yeah, and if you look at mythology, you go back to mythology, they used, using religion as an excuse to wipe out your neighbor. That's the oldest story in time.
Yep. It
That's
is.
the oldest story.
And also using anti-religion to wipe people out is one of the oldest stories in all time too. Look, even back to the attacks where it was, the worldly groups against the Pharisees and the Pharisees against the other churches, and it was anti-religion versus religion, religion versus religion, and they were all killing each other because they didn't agree with the end goal. It didn't matter which group you were killing each other.
Yeah, and most people forget there's no innocent babe in the wood. Since the first documented tribes of Africa, Leaky Man, the first tribes of Europe, they have
People
found
forget
they
a
found
lot.
murder victims they find bodies millions of years old that are murder
They found
victims.
parts in ancient Roman and Greek ruins where they found mass graves of infant and fetal bones under buildings.
Yeah, and then some of these were pagan religions, and others were just massacres carried out in the name of the government.
I still argue with them using pagan as a universal term. It started as a very specific religion, and now they use it to describe every earth religion. And it doesn't matter if it's a positive or negative earth religion; they lump them all together under it, and that bothers me.
Yeah,
but I get what you're saying, because that's the word everyone uses
I was
for
using
it
the
now.
proper term pagan to refer to the Roman religions as a collective.
Yeah, I just got sidetracked because that's one of my common rants.
Yeah,
as I was saying, you were using it right.
Yeah, the true origin of the word pagan was a Christian term created to describe all the Roman religions, of which there were many.
Mm-hmm. It was a slur against a specific group. Just like the word Christian was a slur. They were Waists until the Romans started calling them that.
Christian was a term for the slaves.
Yeah, Christian was a term as those filthy Christ followers. And it was actually a slur for prosecution.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah, to be Christian meant under Roman law, you could be taken away legally as a slave,
or murdered, or fed to lions or any other thing.
Yeah,
whatever they felt that they wanted to do to you.
Yeah,
and it was a slur. It was created as a slur. It'd be no different than using a racial or ethnic or cultural slur now.
Yeah.
The difference is it was adopted by the group because they said, well, that is true, that we're following him, so we'll use that. I actually think the term is more accurate. If you look up the original terms they were using during the first Bible printing and stuff, it translates to Waist. That's actually more accurate if you actually look at biblical doctrine.
Yeah. But there are books still missing from the Bible. The Sayings of Christ by Thomas. The history of the church was actually part of the first documentation was the various histories written down by the gospel.
There's books missing.
Yeah.
There's books missing. There are, because every apostle wrote books on it, and only 4 of them went in the Bible. But there's books missing. There's also books that certain churches like Catholic have added that have nothing to fucking do with the Bible. It has to do with their personal doctrines they added over the years. Yeah.
Actually, the letters of St. Peter, they were just added because we don't know which St. Peter, though. Was it St. Peter the Apostle or St. Peter the Founder? 2 different people.
Yeah,
and they hundreds of years apart.
Mm-hmm. And they just assume it's one or the other. And I love these people who act like, I've had so many people go, oh, you're Christian, you mean Catholic, you pray about. No, fuck that.
No, here's the thing.
I'm not Catholic. Fuck no.
Mm-hmm. No, I've met people from the Church of Syria, and they've said that Mary was from Syria, but she was actually Greek. Because the history of the church actually started in Cyprus, right?
Well, if you actually study biblically, Jesus' lineage was mixed as hell.
Yeah.
He was not one race.
No.
He wasn't even 1 or 2 races. He was of multiple cultures and races from all over the place.
Yeah, but also some of the you had Greeks and you had I think there's disputes over different ones, but I don't think most of the most of the disciples were actually what you would consider natives. They were descendants of the various groups that
They weren't. They were pulled from all
Phoenicians.
over the place and brought in.
Yeah.
He picked whoever he thought would actually help him carry his message. He didn't care where you were from. That's why he had everything from tax collectors and thieves to fishermen to everything else ended up following him at points. Because he would minister to and try to take in everyone. That's why a known prostitute hooker who had done all these crimes ended up being one of the followers of his with them.
Yet she's never credited.
She's never credited, and she was there the whole time. There's references in the Bible to her doing different events with him throughout these travels.
Yeah.
She traveled with them.
Yeah. She was a witness, and she was also
the one when they were all fighting over who got which position with him, was willing to humble herself and wash his feet and listen to his stories.
And when John had found, when Brother John, as he preferred to be called, Brother John founded what's now called the Half Church or the Orthodox Church. Mm-hmm. That's the only direct founding we have in lineage. It's actually the Orthodox Church and the Orthodox calendar, which totally was ignored by the Romanized. Yeah.
This is where I argue with both sides, because the whole Bible's anti-woman thing, it really isn't true if you actually know where to look. There's references to evil women. It's also even a lot of the men that are held up as trying to follow God are actually shown as being very flawed and of themselves. But there's several women that are held up as sacred and holy in the things they did, and they became part of Jesus' lineage, and they were honored for it and stuff like that. From Deborah to Esther to Ruth to Naomi and all this. So it's not anti-woman there, anyways. But it's also, but they did remove things that were written and done by the females, and I think that had to do with Paul because he was very anti-woman. It comes out even in the books that he wrote. Because there's things he said in his letters to the different churches on how to behave and how to follow God that do not match with things that Jesus and the Old Testament said that are more anti-woman.
Yeah, but the fragments we have from Thomas also state that there were certain people not to be identified because of the persecution of the Romans. But those letters were to be contained and sealed until such time that the persecution was over. Now, some people call it the Dead Sea Scrolls, but the Dead Sea Scrolls are older than that.
Yeah. However, where they got the Dead Sea Scrolls from, which show was it? They actually went there. There are actually thousands of those caves and catacombs with tons of those jars with scrolls and old documents in them.
Yeah,
and most of them have never been opened, and most of them have never been gathered.
There's I saw this thing that this historian doesn't want to open them, and because what they want to do is they want to create a method of scanning the document so that because as soon as they open it, it'll crumble.
Yeah, on this special, they did actually do it where they actually used the special vacuum seal chamber to open one and scan it in and get the information off it. And
it takes so long.
It's a long process and it's expensive, but we need to do it.
Absolutely, because there's so much lost history of the first 1,000 years.
And there's references in the old church documents and the writings of the old church leaders in the old days that there were things for the Bible that were written by Mary while she was following him.
Yeah, there's also the fact that I was going back to the Orthodox Church, and although Brother John did found it, it's believed that Mother Mary actually ran it. She was actually the first. She was actually the first pope, according to the Syrians.
And I mean, look you had the two Marys. Were how much of the importance of the Bible rests on those two, honestly, and the things that they did.
They called. Well, Mary Magdalene was referred to at one period of time as Mary the Faithful.
Yes, and she still is to some people. She absolutely was. Yes, she was a horrible person when they met her.
But she
was caught in adultery, but so was the guy.
Yeah, but she was kidnapped.
And they didn't try to kill him.
Yeah, she was only believed to be 14 to 16, according to the.
Which
See, the
doesn't
problem is we
necessarily
don't have
mean she
access.
wasn't doing a lot of this
No.
shit to people. Because some of those people were still choosing that even at that age. You also have to consider the age time period. 14 to 16 was considered adult then.
Yes.
So it's a kind of hairy thing, but she changed. The difference was she changed. She grew up. She became a better person. She became noble and kind.
They found the Tim.
She sat at his feet and washed them and massaged him while listening to him and devotedly saying, "I follow you. I love you."
See, the historians, when now I forget his name, when the Jewish historians wrote about Christ, they wrote about Christ 68 years later, and they took it from, and the history we get of Christ comes from the last survivor of the original. Mary the Faithful was the last to die, and she gave the interview to the Jewish historians in what they called the open forum outside the temple, where they held court in the shadow of the Temple of the Mount.
Yeah.
She gave testimony. Her testimony put Christ into history.
Yeah, there are about 140 miracles that are documented in the New Testament that are the stories of Jesus, his parables, and the things he did for people. Out of a supposed 3.5 years that he was supposedly traveling on foot doing this stuff for people daily, there was a lot of stuff they left out.
Yeah, and some people actually think it was 33 out of 3 years. That the gatherings from different historical documents don't account with in Bible interpretation, and of course, you know which side the church sides with.
Yeah, and this is why when I study my culture, my religion, because yes, I'm Lakota. We have a very monotheistic view, and most of the tribe very much adopted Christianity because it fits with our worldview. We kind of view it as we found the culture we were looking for, you know?
Plus, it also fit. Well, I'm not saying any one particular tribe, but there were a lot of tribes who saw the Great Father and God and the universe as one and the same.
Well, that is the Lakota, because we were monotheistic. We believed in the Great Spirit. And if you actually look at the parables of the white buffalo and stuff, it actually is telling the story that mimics the sacrifice of Jesus. Now, so it always was a part of who we were. We just kind of adapted it, saying, well, this is what we were looking for, which is why it's so common there. And so I study the tribal spiritual stuff. I study the biblical stuff. I don't want just the modern view of the biblical stuff. So when I study it, I study translations off the Dead Sea Scrolls. I study Old Hebraic language and the original words used in different parts of the Bible. I study things back to Geneva Bible, the first Bible, through modern translations, and compare them to each other and see where they've changed things and where they've altered things. Because I think that's an important part of it. If you just blindly trust one printing, well, the modern translations, that's a man translating it. If you believe it's a holy word, the translations are naturally going to be flawed because we're trying to explain it in a new language. So you're going to be closer.
You're talking about translation. Yeah, you're talking about translation by a Swiss guy who was working half blind with a dictionary.
There was a joke I heard years ago where, okay, this guy is new as a monk in this monastery, and they tell him, well, part of the jobs of the new monks is you have to go down and you have to help with transcribing our old documents into new books and stuff like that, because this is in the era where to transcribe they had to rewrite it all by hand, which was how they transcribed in the old days. So he's doing this job for several days, and all of a sudden one day he just disappears, and they don't see him when the shift's supposed to end for hours and hours. So finally, trying to figure out where he is, they go down into the cellar and look at him, and he's sitting there hunched over one of the books, crying his eyes out. And they ask him, what's wrong? What is it? And he looks up and goes, the word is celebrate.
Yep. Celebrate life. Celebrate God. Celebrate.
Well, that's a joke on the whole celibate thing.
Celebrate, yeah.
Celebrate instead of celibate, which is a big difference, right? But that's actually within reach, where you could see one person's handwriting being slightly off and one person's eyes being slightly off. That could happen.
Yeah.
Which is why you need to study the root languages. You need to study Hebraic language. You need to study Latin. You need to study how those languages developed in order to understand the early documents.
But when the translations were first made, it was the first error was one man did so many documents, and then the church one day said we're going to archive the rest.
Yeah, and now they're starting to go back to all these old documents that were originally translated from, those that are accessible, those that aren't buried under the Vatican by the Catholic Church.
Which don't
And
have
they're starting to,
but they don't have all the documents anyway.
no, but they are intentionally keeping some of the documents from
so is America.
From people.
So is America. When after the Great War in Europe, a lot of the archives and a lot of the documents were taken to America and placed in the hands of the 6 universities.
Well, look at what they did with where I grew up. The government came in and literally took every artifact from a native museum, forcefully buried most of them in the archives in Smithsonian, and then they gave the others to a government museum and changed the information on them. Yeah, that was when I was a child. I watched it happen.
They also, I don't know, the Minnesota Hills, how they bulldozed the Minnesota Hills. That was actually a Momoan temple that had been buried for centuries. They wanted to wipe out the fact that Plymouth wasn't the first landing.
Yeah, but they are finding more of these original documents, finding ones that haven't been taken yet, finding old Hebraic translations that weren't screwed with as much as those. Maybe not the first writings, but before they were actually starting to be translated into English. And they're starting to translate off those. And you're getting, like the Hebraic Bible they recently did in Israel is based on the Hebraic ones they wrote in the early church time before the Catholic Church seized all the documents.
That under the guise of unification.
So you're getting more access to these old documents than we've had for hundreds of years. So this is the time. Find those accesses they're creating for people and study it. Find the fucking difference. Find where they changed it. Find the truth.
And I remember growing up about 90s. I think it was in the 90s. The church threw out one of the translators because he dared actually speak in public about the differences. He was branded a heretic because he wanted to publish the pre-Genoese Bible, isn't it? The
one that they have now, which they call the First Official Bible, which is actually only a few of the books of the New Testament. It doesn't count the Torah because that was in the era where they didn't consider Jews really part of the Christian heritage.
But as he stated, Christ never preached in any of the documents. Christ never preached any Judaism.
No, but he was of Jewish heritage, and there is ties to it, which is where I think it's a factual thing to keep them together, but it also they've tried to blend it in ways that aren't quite accurate either.
No. It's the doctrine of the era, but it wasn't the doctrine of Christ. And
God didn't have a chosen people. He had a few families he blessed that he was going to give lineage and history to because of the good deeds that the members did, but he didn't have a chosen people where this race was better than this race.
Yeah, the chosen one. Why is the chosen one not? Why could people claim to be chosen? And why is that not different from the master race? We'll never know because
it is the same thing, and both are absolutely wrong. Okay, yes, but the things that happened before World War II with Ottoman Empire and all that stuff, and some of the Jewish persecutions they did were wrong. So were the persecutions that those groups were doing to the Jews before that. The persecution has gone back and forth in the Middle East so long there isn't an innocent side.
No, but see, a lot of people forget the origins of the persecutions, particularly in the Ottoman Empire. When the Ottomans, when the Ottomans are the descendants of the Mongols who invaded and took over Iran, and they they were the last of the horsemen, and they attacked Constantinople because nobody thought they could go all the way around and reach Constantinople, and the Jews aided supply lines and ships to the Ottomans because they thought they were being persecuted by the Christians who wouldn't let them build temples because they were called Christ deniers. They weren't allowed to build temples. They weren't allowed to worship in public, etc. So they sided with the Ottomans.
You got to look at the history on the other side of it and how much
the
Muslim culture has persecuted all the religions and cultures that were there before and wiped most of them out and destroyed their artifacts and other stuff. That's also just as horrific. And so you can't say either side's innocent.
No, but what I'm saying is when the Ottomans finished their conquest, they turn around and says, well, you're now, if you're truly our friend, you'll adopt our religion. And the Jews said, no, that's not why we helped you. And, well, the Ottoman, just turned around and said, execute them. And those who didn't make it back to their ships were murdered on the beach, you know?
Well, and I think one thing is, I will say, in literature, I think some of the best ties to the whole Eastern battle and the Dark Eastern cults and stuff was actually well portrayed by C.S. Lewis with the whole Horse's Boy era of Narnia. Yeah. Because it went into some of the dark cults in the early Middle East.
Well, growing up with C.S. Lewis, I never know that each animal represented a different religion. And the witch herself, she represented... I don't know why he just chose Satan to be a woman when it's clearly stated several times in the Bible, the Prince of Lies.
Well, it's also referenced multiple times in the Bible that angels aren't actually supposed to have a gender. So I think it's interpretation to Prince of Lies as well, because there is something to that.
Maybe.
So yeah. I think because he was trying to come up with a fantasy, and in that era, wicked witches were popular in fantasy, so it was an easy way to portray it. Lion was a reference to biblical names for Jesus and God.
Yeah, because people don't know this. Up until 1968, there was the lions of Israel had the last of the lions. They were, they wiped them out when Israel formed. They wiped out the lines because it had interfered with their supply lines because they were in a protected area in the south, and they needed to set up a military base, so they wiped out the lions in a protected zone. So there's all these things. Oh, we're peaceful people just fighting for our survival. No. You do things for your own convenience. The Balfour Agreement was meant to be a peaceful solution. Others took it as a green light to go to war against the British Empire, even though the British were saying, "What? We're agreeing to help you set up," and this, and it was then that's what they call the Great Betrayal, where Kennedy stepped in and supplied arms, and
there are some very dark things in most of these cultures.
Yeah.
This is why, but there are, if you look in history, there's a lot of times where you would consider agnostic and atheists have intentionally persecuted religious people to try to silence cultures and religions. And that's happened multiple times throughout history.
Yeah.
So you can't say that any side's innocent. And you can see today, look at the way that these people in the atheist movement today argue their point. They don't argue by saying, well, I see science and logic as this. They argue it as, at least I don't follow a sky god and I don't have a god daddy and an invisible father and stuff. And they literally do it by trying to persecute religions.
Yeah, guys, yes, you do. I've never met an atheist who's ever been openly honest about the fact that there's so many Satanists amongst them.
I have met a couple.
Yeah.
They're few and far between.
The most atheists I've met are in denial that the whole movement.
Most of them are.
Satan.
Most of them are. And see, atheist and agnostic are not the same, but the atheists have tried to claim the moniker of the agnostic, which is we don't believe what we can't see. Agnostic is just you have trouble understanding that beyond your own experience, which has to do with certain brain behaviors and logic centers.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with agnostic.
No, but the agnostic, however, don't know their true origin because they came from they were a branch of the Gnostic Church who were the seekers of truth.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the
That's why that name
methodologies to
was.
find
That's why that
truth.
name was developed,
Yeah,
was because it meant seekers of truth. So, okay, we don't know what's out there. We can't believe in what we haven't seen, but we want to learn more. That's agnostic.
yeah. The first tenet of the church was to disbelieve what you have been taught because we know what you have taught is to be a lie. Because,
Question with boldness the very existence of God, for if he exists, he surely honors questions than blindfolded fear.
yeah,
Thomas Paine.
it was an agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Although it was, yet he also admitted he was a member of the Gnostic churches.
Yep.
which
There's a
are-
reason why I use that quote, because yeah, I'm a Christian person. I love that quote because I don't believe ignorance is good. There are biblical references where Jesus told that his people that our greatest downfall will be our ignorance. You are to be as wise as the serpent and innocent as the lamb. He never told us to shy ourselves away from or not study other cultures or religions. He told us not to follow them.
He also said, "Don't move to another land unless thou marriest into that tribe." And in that term, you know what marry means? To marry. Don't forget, he was a carpenter. To marry, these are two pieces of timber. You adjust so they grooved, and you put them together and you glue them together. That is to marry.
Yeah, and the reason why that
It
term
becomes
became that
one.
in carpentry, it was to be unified, to be joined by God. In other words, to be perfect.
Yeah,
Marriage does not
marriage
exist.
is
It's like
joined
you
as
go into the
one.
modern churches and they all are quick to quote the part where it says how women are supposed to submit to their husbands and serve him. They always skip the 13 verses after where it explains all the things the husband's supposed to do for the wife, including lay down his very life and love her as Christ did the church.
Yeah, people also forget that people go around and say, "I like the anti-gun movement. What would Christ do?" Well, Christ told Luke to sell his cloak and buy a sword.
I was going to say Christ would chase people with a bullwhip and call them snakes and thieves.
Yeah, well, that too. What would Christ do?
Flip tables?
He'd enter Goldman Sachs, flip tables, and say, "Arrest these MFs." Because Christ
He
was
was
an old
not
man who used the vernacular of the
words
day.
that
He was
he
not an
used.
educated man.
The
He would've
words that he used to
Yes.
call them snakes and thieves and that stuff were considered slurs in that time. And he said this about the religious
call it
leaders.
an MF.
He did something that in that time was considered criminal. It was considered heresy.
Yeah, his heresy. He swore in church. What did he say? He called them vipers.
Vipers and thieves and snakes in a
Yes.
den of iniquity and defiling the master's home and all kinds of other stuff. This was not a nice response. He was right.
No.
They were defiling his father's home. They were violating the laws.
Yeah,
He was right.
Yeah, he was. He was basically he was going full Samuel L. Jackson on them.
Which
And
is
if he had
why
Yep.
there is a biblical time when we are called to speak against evil or fight against evil. There are certain things we're not supposed to just tolerate and sit pacifistically by for.
And I love how they go around saying, "Oh, just turn the other cheek." That's not exactly the exact quote. And we live in an age where everybody's using what do we call it, the Idiot's Guide or the Pocketbook Guide.
Well, they also use the love. The money is the root of all evil is what they say, but what it actually says is the love of money is the root of all evil. If money itself was evil, you could not use it to tithe to God because it would be considered giving him evil.
Yeah, tithes were a tax created by the church to sustain itself, but in reality, it was to build the golden throne by cabal, who claim to be Jesuits, but they're not Jesuits. This Pope's not a Jesuit. He doesn't know what a Jesuit is.
Neither did the Jesuit movement in the French Revolution either, because they violated their tenets so much it's not even funny.
The monks armed themselves. Anime night during the French Revolution, the monks armed themselves and smuggled arms from England to the French revolutionaries.
Because
that's
a lot of
those French revolutionaries never went after the English.
Because they went so beyond what was allowed for that culture.
I think smuggling guns is a violation.
Oh, well, yeah, that too. But I mean, look at what they did. They didn't just say we're going to fight back against being persecuted. They went after families. They went after children. They murdered, slaughtered, tortured, all this stuff.
And the irony is they destroyed Catholic France, which had many monasteries shut down. They shot themselves literally in the foot. They destroyed the Church of France.
Mm-hmm.
Even today.
This was not a good movement. This was not a noble thing.
No, see, but the Jesuits tried to justify it by saying, well, the false ones sit on the throne of, the false ones sit on the throne and all these various other justifications. But really, most people don't realize, but being sent to a monastery was actually a punishment in the Middle Ages. They were actually not good. A lot of the monks weren't good people. They were sent to monasteries because they were, let's say, the rich lifting up the carpet and brushing a lot of things under it. Oh, cousin Jimmy just killed another girl. Send him to the monastery. Hide him from the authorities. That's what it was. It was an exile for people and that's why it becomes such an aristocratic movement of wine drinking slobs, because they were aristocrats. They were the sons of aristocrats exiled. And by the way, don't get me started on what they did to the nuns. The monks were very terrible, very terrible.
If you actually know the history of the nunhood, it was basically treated as caged concubines for several generations.
Yeah, the monks kept the nuns as sex slaves, even right up to the French Revolution, which is why the French church was abolished by Robespierre. He was actually outraged when he found out. He had no idea what was going on. See, Robespierre, he was a psychopath, no doubt about it. But he actually bought his own Kool-Aid, He thought he was the champion of the people and he was going to purge society of evil. And so when he found out what the monks were doing, he had the French church abolished.
Well, that's the thing and this is where I get into it with a lot of these Catholics. Oh God, do I get into it with Catholics? These ones who talk about, well, there was a long era where kids that didn't have families or kids who didn't have homes or mom who couldn't take care of the kids, they could take them to the Catholic Church. It's like, yeah, and most of them were turned into slaves or were sold as sex slaves into the nunnery.
Yeah, well,
these were not kids that were raised and given a life. They were turned into property and abused their entire life.
Yeah, they were put on a farm and told to pray, told to farm, told to pray. They were never allowed to have a family. And then one day, when they're starting to feel a bit horny, they were basically thrown in a room with a woman who had no clothes on, and unfortunately, that human nature takes over sometimes, especially when the kid has not been, there's no morale. When you're told, these are the only laws you have to obey, well, they didn't consider rape theft, or because that's what it is. It's a theft.
It's a theft of your body and your most intimate innocence, but it is a theft. Yeah. But you do know the history that happened in the river behind Notre Dame in France, right?
That's
the drowning victims.
That's where anybody who was even slightly deformed was drowned, right, in the river.
No, it actually wasn't so much that. It was dismissed as commonplace suicide, and it wasn't deformity or other stuff. They don't know what caused any of this. There was a 6-year period where 306 people were drowned.
No, I don't.
The last body they found, the day they found it, there were 16 victims. The last body they found was a woman who had no history recorded anywhere. There was no record of who she was or where she came from. And she drowned with a twisted, sadistic smile on her face. Yeah,
I do know the story, the Hunchback of Notre Dame that's set during the French Revolution.
which is actually based on fact.
Which is based on fact, and the Hunchback
it's horrific. It is horrific what was done, and the end of it, which they sanitized in every history telling of this that they make in the movies and TV, is so scary and creepy.
He laid down. He dug her up and laid with her. in her coffin. Anime Night. Esmeralda was stoned to death for being a heretic, and her
And
crime was loving a deformed man. This deformity is seen as Satan, satanic.
the end of the book is him sealing away both of their bodies after he had them killed to permanently keep his trophies.
Yeah, they found him in the coffin, so they nailed him in.
Mm-hmm.
They nailed him in the coffin. He was laying with her in the coffin.
Mm-hmm. But it's so creepy. But the other is they literally everything that spoke to evidence of what this happened. Everyone who was involved in the investigation said that they wanted to call these murder. They wanted to say that this woman was a part of it because there was so much evidence by how she drowned and the way the others were drowned that she did it. But they were told not to because she was part of the church's kids they took in and they didn't want them to know about it. Basically, the viewpoint is that she was a kid that was taken in by the church very, very young and abused to the point that she went insane and started killing people.
Yeah.
And the creepiest part of it was that it was 306 bodies.
Yeah. Now,
I do
know.
The last little part I was saying about this.
Yeah.
The creepiest part of this goes because it was 306 bodies. Do you know how many seconds it takes for a person to fully drown?
I know
306.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know where you're going with that, and
yeah, this was intentionally done. There's no way this was an accident.
I do know that throughout history, you may not know, you don't know your neighbors. I grew up in a Catholic area, and when I went to school, half the kids were Satanists. I've never encouraged Satanists before, and they all came out of the same area. And they're all, they're all carrying these black Bibles in their school bags and and their black beads and these were proper Satanists, and you never know your neighbors, and a lot of people get lured into this because history is so violent. But you got to remember something. China had 1,600 years where there were at least 2 wars going on. They never knew peace until 1959.
Yeah.
They have had
China
is an empire. China started as this little country in the near Korea. They conquered their neighbors, but their neighbors then conquered them. And then they revolted against the Mongols. They revolted against each other. And they even had religious uprisings. They had atheist uprisings.
Mm-hmm. Well, look at the whole Mongolian thing. It's not as cut and dry as either side paints it. Khan was a freaking psychopath and a mass murderer. But he went insane and became that because his people were being persecuted.
Yeah, but you know what's amazing about the Khan? He wanted his older son to become the most peaceful man in the world and rule and be be educated.
That's the weird thing. Some of these most insane psychopaths, dictators, and mass killers are the ones who want their kids to be the most peaceful people.
Yeah, but Khan, I think you're right. He was sick and tired of the Chinese paying off different tribes to fight each other, and he said, "Are you going to take their gold or are you going to take my sword?"
But, and I hate giving credit. I hate fucking giving credit to Disney on anything. The part they got right about the Mongols when they did Mulan was them senselessly killing
invaders. Yeah,
that they started it. But at that point, when they started attacking the wall and coming in, they were mass murdering. They were intentionally targeting villages full of women and children. They were doing anything they could to hurt innocent people.
Yeah.
And that was true.
In the eyes of Khan, if you had to hurt your enemy. You had to destroy their morale. You had to destroy everything about
This
them.
is why I think when they used the name Khan for the character they created in Star Trek, they actually did it right. Because he was almost sympathetic at times, but he really was a sociopath also.
You know something about Khan? That he has the worst world record in the world. He has the most descendants because he performed he raped women every day of his life since he turned 30. Every day, whether it was a Mongol woman, a Chinese woman, or whatever, where he was, he would demand women to be rounded up for him to use. And he did it with such regularity that, and the only reason why his men tolerated it is because he said,
Welcome
when I'm
back,
done,
Nato, by the way.
because he said, when I'm done, they're yours. They're yours to do as you please.
You do know actually the history of the 1001 Arabian Nights, right?
That's actually Kublai Khan, the last of the Khans. There was tales.
No, but the history of how the tales actually came about was Sherazade. She was creating them so they wouldn't kill her. The man that she was forced to marry was the last Khan.
Yeah.
He married women almost daily, and after he forced himself on them after the marriage, he killed them.
Yeah. And
she created the stories with cliffhangers on each one so that he wouldn't kill her so she could live for another day to tell another story.
But you know why he needed a storyteller?
Because he's a giant fucking child at heart.
That, and he was also born blind.
But that was her way of staying alive. That's how the stories came about.
He was blind. That's why he was the last Khan. He was blind. They said that his line was now tainted. He wasn't allowed to have children. Any child that was born was killed.
The viciousness of it. Yeah, and he married women constantly. He also raped women while he was marrying the women. He had a marriage almost every single day, and he had multiple concubines he was raping and killing in between them.
He wanted to live up to great-great-granddaddy. And he was blind, and he was insane. He was probably the product of incest, given the amount of genetic effects he had.
Considering the amount of sexual assaults and stuff in that family, probably. But yeah, that's the thing. Some of the great things of history have come out of some of the greatest tragedies. If you're strong enough to find a way to get through it. I am literally the survivor line of Wounded Knee. I'm here because my grandfather, a few generations back, as a child, crawled out from under a pile of burning bodies with a gunshot wound in his leg. So,
and I also know
no excuses. Keep fighting.
Yeah, there's no excuses.
You
know? I know there's no excuses for history, but I think today there are so many people who want to repeat history by
that's what I was saying. There's no excuses today. Look at what these people overcame.
Yeah.
No more excuses. We're not accountable for our ancestors. We're not accountable for anything the people before us did.
And those who
live your life and be accountable for what you did.
And to those who are marching in Chicago demanding revenge, open up your pocketbooks for every crime that you've committed.
It's funny when this white liberal yuppie boy was saying that, first of all, we need full retribution, 3,000 for every person, for every minority a month. It's like, so I just retweeted it going, okay, well, where's my money, bitch? And give me an extra 1,000 for all the albino shit I have to put up with from both sides. For some reason, he blocked me. I thought he was for reparations for minorities.
I'm a minority. I'm of Scottish descent. I'm a persecuted minority.
Fuck's sakes, I'm an albino native who's a natural redhead. Fuck's sakes, I'm a minority of a minority of a minority.
That's right. You're a minority amongst redheads. Because
how many native women are redheaded naturally, anyways, and redheads are extremely rare, anyways, naturally.
No, according to the Africa movement, we're all just genetic mutants, and they can publish that in the Roots.
Fuck
in
that
America.
bullshit. The whole Fivers movement and the everything comes from Africa movement is black supremacy at its worst. It is absolute racism.
Considering that Leakey's been debunked how many times?
Mm-hmm. And there's still how many people keep saying, "No, we're all from Africa."
Yeah, Leaky Man's only 100,000 years old. They dated the soil.
The other one that they tried to use to justify that description was Piltdown Man, and we all know that one was found out to be a complete fake that was built out of plasters.
Yep. And the French also destroyed 5,000-year-old artifacts in Vietnam because they couldn't stand the fact that the Vietnamese culture was older than theirs.
Also, let's talk about this because let's fucking face it, carbon dating is a bullshit science at best anyways, because in order to know how much carbon it adapted through history and how much it soaked in, you would have to know how much it started with and what elements it's been through in the time it's existed.
And you also have to know, it's also, which is why the older it gets, the greater the variable, because not only is the decay rate a fractional, it's 12.5, it's 12.49654321. I did chemistry. I know. Radiology is so inaccurate. Radiological sciences are so inaccurate on carbon dating. Do you know the core? The core of the Earth has been updated. They were using gravity. They actually there's so much science we do not get told about. There are things that measure gravity and detect gravitons. These are classified. These are still classified sciences. The other day, NASA published a document on how they use gravity waves to look inside a black hole. Excuse me, you did what now? They use gravity detectors in orbit to look inside a black hole.
Okay.
Do you know how many artificial viruses there are now? Since 1968, they've created more viruses than there are in natural existence.
And
They've been making viruses since 1968. When was DNA supposed? When did DNA testing come in? In the 80s?
On that note, I do have to jet, especially since it just told me I can't upload any more videos today because I've got a lot to get ready to leave on a trip tomorrow. So,
hi, Anime Night. How you going?
Fatal, I gotta go. If you're still there, I know we got yapping.
I have to get going. I have to get going too. My sister wants to game, so I just got the text message saying, "Hey, I'm on. If you want to join," I'm like, "Sure." But we will do this again. Not this week though, because I know everybody has Christmas going on. So
I will not be here the week after because I'm going into hiding.
We will take a winter break. I will keep an eye out on things and see if I can snag another Sunday.
You need to try to come up with something for my birthday for everybody to do too. Remember that. Poke, 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 poke. Because you guys were the ones
who do a charity
celebration last year.
Sorry to hijack you guys.
Why not do a charity stream on your channel? Why not do that?
I don't know. I just know I need other people. I like having it on other channels, so I don't have to sit here and pull all the switches while I'm trying to celebrate.
All right. I will figure something out for your birthday stream. So
I can't believe it's getting this close again.
I know. Anyway, guys, we will see you all later. Tune in next time when we come back for episode 19. Take care, everybody.
If hasn't struck him down with lightning.
Exactly. Bye, guys.